Peace and welcome to another episode of Artistry, where art meets industry. We are your hosts, Rochelle Etienne Robinson and Stan Substantial Robinson. Season 4 of Artistry is powered by Words, Beats, and Life. Peace and welcome to Artistry, where art meets industry. We are Rochelle Etienne Robinson and Stan Substantial Robinson. It's Wednesday, folks, and welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good. So, every week that we do this is always a treat because we always get to build with some of our folks and learn more about their creative journey. If you are joining us for the very first time, welcome to Artistry, the podcast where we are joined by visual artists and or performing artists or arts administrators where we discuss their creative journey. If you are coming back with us, welcome back. Today's guest is R&B vocalist and instrumentalist, a producer and published recording artist, MLLN. Originally from Maryland, MLLN was born into a family where everyone played and performed music on stage. His musical strengths are harmony, backing vocals, and scatting. In developing his style, he strives to find balance between singable pop songs and forward-thinking R&B grooves. He makes music that is honestly meaningful and infectiously fun. He has a number of original songs and albums to his credit. He has toured with Lawrence, the band, and enjoyed working with artists such as ROMderful, Moo Latte, Jeremy Passion, Couch, and more. He has performed at premier East Coast venues like 930 Club, Stone Pony, Higher Ground, 3S, and Artspace. MLLN drops his debut album, In a Day, this Friday on all streaming platforms, so be sure to check it out. Please welcome to the show, MLLN.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
How's it going?
You can walk us.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. We are so excited to learn about this project that you have that's coming out. So we have, I know there's a very romantic story behind it, the project. And so we'll get into that in a minute.
Yes,
exactly. So we'll be getting into that. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get started. So, MLLN, as you and so many and countless others have been in this, what do we say? How do we say? The pandemic. What has the last 3, almost 4 years now been like for you?
Oh man, it has actually just, I feel like I've gotten to get the most creativity out in this time. I'm a very social person, so I like to go out and go to events. And when the pandemic hit, obviously it was hard, because I couldn't see my friends. But at the same time, I thought, what better time to really focus on my craft, focus on my music, get more active 100%. On social media, and collaborate with people. So I started joining all these forums, and I joined Discord, which I didn't know what Discord was before the pandemic. Then when I joined the Discord, I saw, oh my gosh, all these people are also wanting to make music. So I started making tons and tons of music. And it actually gave me a sense of who I am as an artist. I was kind of able to find myself as an artist by digging really, really deep inside myself and thinking, what do I want to do? Like, who do I want to be moving forward in my musical path? And because I knew I wanted to continue my musical path, but figuring out exactly what I wanted to say and what I wanted to accomplish with my music was so crucial during the pandemic time. So yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it was everything for me, it was all of it.
No, yeah. I mean, they say, as the saying goes, great art, comes from, struggle and trauma and
challenges.
Thank you. Yes,
yeah,
and challenges.
Sure.
So, we look forward to hearing all that you've been working on.
Yeah, for sure. And we have heard a ton of what you've been working on. In fact, I know with Shell talking about the pandemic. During the pandemic is when I first discovered your music, right? And just the story for those who don't know, it's just kind of crazy how it happened. I manage a playlist on Spotify called Soulful Hip Hop, and I received this really, really dope song with MLLN, and I believe it was Blue Orb, if I'm not mistaken, called Warm Waters. And I just remember being blown away by the song and was like, man, this is really good. And I wish someone was rapping on it, because it'd be great on this playlist if there was like, rapping on it, because that's what the playlist was. But I knew I wanted to hear more of your stuff. Did a deep dive and just really, went on Spotify and listened to everything that you had put out up to that point. And immediately I was just like, man, this kid is good. And then I remember checking out your bio and seeing that you were from Maryland. I was like, well, that explains a lot, right? It's a lot of talented folks in Maryland. So man, I was super excited to see that. And then later on, reached out and we collabed, and the rest is kind of history from there, man. So it's just dope to really, really see how much you've done since then to now. And a lot has changed in a brief period of time. So, happy we discovered your stuff.
We have some stills.
Oh, yeah. And we did some digging, bruh.
Digging?
We found some cool images and stuff we want to share with you and our viewers, man. We'll bring that up in a second, but definitely... yeah, man, it's been dope just watching everything with you and stuff. So we'll bring that up in a second, but I'll let Shell take the next question.
So, as we discuss in the show, we talk about your creative journey. You come from a musical family, and so we are curious, as we ask all of our guests, what was your first introduction to the arts? Was it performing arts or was it visual arts?
My first introduction to the arts, let's see. Oh, wow, you did some digging. Oh, wow. We'll talk about that group right over there later, I'm sure. So my first introduction to the arts was, it was when I was in the womb. My mom was gigging, doing performances. My mom and dad were both doing Hindustani Indian classical performances. So they would go and perform at, different events. And ever since I was, and then, when I was born, and I just kind of grew up going to these shows and sleeping by the speakers and just kind of having music just constantly be a part of my day to day, right? My weekends, and then as I grew up, my mom started teaching me some vajapati, which is it's like a keyboard. It's like an accordion, but you're sitting down. So you pump air into it. And I was playing that. And I was learning how to play these songs, and I didn't think much of it at the time, but definitely as my life progressed, I realized how important that was, that I had those lessons. Because when I really started having my passion for music, like all of these things that my mom was telling me when I was younger started coming back. I was thinking about like, oh wow, like if you articulate this note like this, then you achieve this kind of feeling. And I was like, oh wow, like she was teaching me at like 2-3 years old, that kind of stuff. And I was not, I guess I was processing it, but I wasn't like really realizing what I was doing. So it was mostly like musical. But my whole family is creative. Like my aunt does paintings, and so does my grandma. So visual art wasn't something that I got super into until later in life, but my sister was also a dancer. So whenever music was happening around the house, my sister was dancing to it. And there's a joke that it's not really, it's actually happened, but when she was younger, she always wanted to be like a showman, right? And so she would tell people would be like, oh, Kinjal, come and dance. And she would say, no, say introducing Kinjal Bhatt. And then she would go.
I know that's right.
Because that's how, my parents would get introduced on stage, and now later in life, like I'm getting introduced. And so it's like, it's so funny how like music and just creativity in general is something that I see my sister do that, and I go, I want to be like that. I want to do that, and we all just kind of, oh my gosh, we all just kind of, feed off of each other creatively. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You mentioned with your upbringing, having grown up in with your parents performing Hindustani music. Can you talk to us about that? Like, what is that? What is Hindustani music? What is it? What are some of the instruments that are associated with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hindustani music is a form of Indian classical music, um, and it's at least in the context that I've seen it, it's uh, it's usually a singer with a vajapati or a harmonium, is the Western language for it, and that's that you pump it and you play. And then
Hmm.
tabla is a very important instrument in it as well, which is what my dad plays. So tabla is basically two bowls essentially with a skin on the top of it,
Hmm.
and you basically one is a lower pitched bowl. It's called the
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
bayu, I believe, and you basically hit it. You strike it with like your middle finger. So I wonder if I could show you. So you essentially strike it like this, and there are two different like a few different ways that you can hit it. And then the right hand is on something called the tabli, which is a higher pitched instrument. So it's like you play it kind of. There's the higher pitches with, I guess it's with your dominant hand. I don't know if left-handed people reverse them, but essentially we play with the left hand is the bayu, that lower pitch. And the sounds that it makes is like so I grew up listening to that kind of groove, and my dad is amazing at it. So,
That's dope.
he plays all sorts of really cool rhythms in between, and during his programs, I'll look at him and be like, oh, and he'll be like, oh, So, but yeah,
That's
that's a cool
awesome.
thing.
That's awesome. Now, do you play any of the instruments?
Yeah, well, so harmonium or Vajapati kind of works like a keyboard works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only difference is you have to pump air with one
Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
right? So you don't
Wow.
usually play with two hands, and typically you play pretty melodically for the most part. So you don't really play chords. There aren't many chords involved unless it's just to like articulate a moment. So
Gotcha.
Right.
typically when singing the melody, you're also playing that melody on the Vajapati.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um, and what,
Almost like a vocoder, right?
yeah, kind of, yeah. And it
Okay.
essentially is there to complement your voice, right? And
Right.
when you play one note, there are different pegs in that harmonium that can bring out different octaves, right? So if
Got
you
it.
open a certain peg, it'll bring out a lower octave. So if you want a little bit more meat to complement your vocal, you can
Mhm.
pull that peg out and play, and it'll be like the lower octave of the note that you're playing.
Okay.
Or if you want a
Dope.
little bit more high end energy, you can bring out the higher octave. So that's how that instrument works. Knowing piano kind of allowed me to like know how to play harmonium. But when I play harmonium, I'm like chord, 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 chord. I'm
Mm.
going crazy with the chords. But there are all these octaves that are being played while I'm playing the chords, and it's like sounding like this big jumble. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Jazz." So, and then my dad, I kind of picked up tabla from my dad just by
Mhm.
watching him play and eventually asking questions as I got older when I started understanding what the fundamentals were. It's a very difficult and very beautiful instrument.
Mm.
And so, yeah. And so actually on this album, the In a Day album that's coming out on Friday, my dad plays tabla on one of the tracks.
Oh,
That's
good.
He's
dope.
light. Yeah, so he's credited on there and everything. He's he's the tabla player for See the Light.
Dope. Dope. Yeah, man. Real quick, first, congratulations to you. This is not your first project, but it's your first, solo album, proper solo album, I guess. And I mean, you've been busy putting out a ton of music, but I've been impressed and blown away by a lot of the stuff you've done. But this album, man, for those of y'all, listening to this or watching this live right now, or watching the replay later, go treat yourself because Millen is extremely talented, as are all of the guests that we have on the show. But yeah, Millen definitely has the gift. And this album, man, of all the work I've heard from you, the arrangements and just, it just doesn't feel like a quote unquote debut album. It feels like someone's like, yeah, this guy clearly has been at it for a while. And yeah, man, it's a beautiful record, brother. Like, top to bottom, from the writing to the as I mentioned, the arrangements, the production, the mixing, the final cover art. Like, yeah, man, you did it top to bottom. So, again, clap it up for Millen, Yeah, man.
That's so kind. So nice of you.
It's the truth, bro. It's definitely, trust, man. I'm not. I definitely do what I can to big up the people I've worked with, and and salute them and stuff like that. But for the record, I'm definitely not giving out a whole lot of compliments if I didn't love it, So,
It's true.
So yeah, I'm an educator. So I'm like, yeah, I listen, man, maybe try blah, blah, blah. Some of the technical, but whether it was solicited or not. But in this case, bro, like, yeah, top to bottom, man, you did a great job.
Yeah, kudos. And it has a mix. Having listened to it, if it has a little bit of something for everyone. If you are interested in pop, you have that there. If you're interested in R&B and soul, that's there as well. Heck, if you even like, Broadway musicals, because it has a little bit of that in there as well. So,
yeah, the Seat of Light, definitely.
Yeah.
I could see that as a whole production, on a stage. You know.
So it literally has a little bit of something for everyone. Now, you mentioned, of course, that, you do R&B, you do scat, you do soul. What was your first introduction to R&B?
Ooh, it's a good question. So when I was in high school, I was super into pop music, a cappella. That was just what was available. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. I gotta stop reacting to all these pictures. But when I was younger, I was into pop, top 40, anything that everybody was listening to, I was typically listening to. And I felt like, I wouldn't say I was unfulfilled, but I would say that something was missing. My brain didn't feel like it was being pushed the way that it wanted to be pushed. And I started learning keyboard. So these two things were happening at the same time, right? Where I was starting to be like, okay, but I want something new. And I started learning piano, right? And so I joined a band in high school of friends that they're all doing music now and they're kicking butt. But I joined this band and they were like, we need a keyboard player. So I was like, okay, I'll learn how to play keyboard. And the first thing we started doing was playing like old soul music. We were playing Al Green. We were playing some Michael. Well, Michael's also like pop, but I consider it a little bit of soul too. We were playing a lot of like Stevie, things like that. That I was like, oh wow, like okay, so I take this chord and I add a seventh to it, right? A little bit of theory. Okay, I add a seventh to it, and it gives me this feeling. Ooh, and if I add a ninth to it, it gives me this feeling. So I'm playing keyboard. I'm not even the main vocalist. I'm a background vocalist, right? And I sang a couple of songs, but I was primarily like exploring the keyboard at this time. And when I started learning about these chords, I was like, oh, this is the thing that I feel like I'm missing. This is the thing that I want more of, in when I'm listening to music. And around the same time, YouTube was very popular. So I found a few artists on YouTube that were using this. And one of the main artists was Jeremy Passion. Jeremy Passion was a huge inspiration for me. And he was doing what I was learning on the keyboard, he was also doing on guitar.
Wow.
So when I saw him doing that on guitar, I was like, I want to learn all of this stuff. And basically learning what he was doing on guitar was a crash course for me to learn how to play guitar. And on top of that, all my friends in the band also were doing the things that he was doing. So if I had any questions, I had people that I could ask. So when I started learning all of this stuff, I was like, oh, wow, like I want to, R&B is, one of my favorite songs that Jeremy Passion covered was Ordinary People by John Legend. And he was playing these chords and I was like, he's playing the same two shapes on the guitar over and over and over again. I can play this song, and what is this song? I love this song. When I went to listen, and I think that was really my first introduction to R&B. And then later down the line, the band started playing like D'Angelo and Badu. We started playing that stuff, and I was like, I got to listen to these records. When I listened to the records, it was like you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing when you listened to D'Angelo and when you listened to Erykah Badu, or more modern versions when you listen to Hiatus Kaiyote. or you listen to Moonchild. For me, Moonchild's a huge inspiration. So that was my first entrance, was actually learning theory and chords, and then the explosion of excitement in R&B was D'Angelo, Badu, Hiatus, Moonchild, Anderson .Paak. You know, you start going into more hip hop kind of things. You learn about Jay Dilla, you know, and all of a sudden, like, these people start blowing your mind. And then going into the soul kind of things was actually really doing deep dives into Earth, Wind, and Fire. Stevie Wonder. Dwele was a huge inspiration. Dwele was like half of my college career, you know, was just listening to Dwele walking to class. So, yeah, all those were huge inspirations to me. And I would consider that more of the explosion. The excitement, the birth of me learning about R&B was through chords and Jeremy Rapper and other YouTube artists. Yeah.
No, that's dope. That's super dope. Yeah, man. We were definitely on the Dwele train early and used to play a ton. I mean, like early demos and stuff, earlier versions of like before his debut came out on a major label. Like we had the original version with like the demo versions of certain songs. Like, just following his journey, man. But which is. Yeah. So it's a great segue for the next question. So, you know, like you talked a lot about the different influences and stuff and the different music you were introduced. And I think anybody who's heard your stuff, you can definitely hear some of those influences, but you still have a unique like style overall. And so tell us about like, how did you first develop, you know, so I know you kind of touched on it a bit, but how did you first develop it, or how do you feel like you've developed it over time? And how would you define it if you had to break it down to someone?
Whew. Stan, that's a heavy question.
Hey, well, you know, it's all this salt and pepper, all that wisdom. You know
we're going to take a quick intermission. I'll know his answer. I would say that, so the progression of listening to music, the progression of my listening to music has been through the lens of a songwriter for a long time. And that means that every time I was listening to something, I felt like I was studying it, right? I felt like, I mean, I was enjoying it. Obviously, it hits you and gets you excited. But for me, it didn't get me excited because I was like, it got me excited because I was like, oh, this feels so good. But more so, it got me excited to learn about what just happened and why what they did made me react this way, right? So when I was younger, I was into pop, right? Later high school, early college, I was very much into soul R&B, right? Eventually, I started getting really into bossa music, right? I started diving into that. And then I graduate from college and I'm like, oh, Latin music and Afro-Cuban music is cool, right? And I started listening to that. And then me and my fiance, when we were dating, we'd go on long car rides. We still do as an engaged couple, but when we would go on long car rides, you know, oftentimes I'd be like, what do you want to hear? What do you want to listen to? Right? And she would be like, musical theater. So then I started listening to musical theater. And I started, every single time that I was listening to a new genre, I remember one time I was with somebody and I was like, just put on whatever you listen to. They put on metal music, and for 4 hours we listened to metal music. And I was like learning, you know? And it helped that band that I joined in high school, one person was a blues head, loved blues. One person was a soul head, Marvin Gaye every day, right? One person was like more of a country head, right? One person was more of a neo soul head. So, and I was just like, I listen to pop music, you know? So getting into an environment where every single practice, every single day, did you hear that new album? No. Did you hear that new album? No. So every single time that I listened to a new genre of music, or got addicted to a new genre of music in my life, it shaped a little bit of how I wanted to sound. So I really, really, I want to stress that for songwriters, you can learn something from every single genre of music, even if you're not a fan of it. I'm not the biggest fan of country music. I'll listen to country music, right? And there's really good country songs out there, but that's not what I would turn on if I just jumped in the car, right? But every single time that I listen to country music, I think, what is it that they're doing that makes people want to turn this on, you know, in the car? Because I'm obviously other people do, right? That's why they have more streams than me. So when I hear people listen to country music, I think, what are they doing? And I go, oh, country music is giving their listeners exactly what they want to hear, right? Exactly when they want to hear it. As soon as the listener's like, man, I could go for a guitar solo. Country sounds like guitar solo, right? As soon as they're like, ooh, I really want to hear, you know, him do the chorus, but a little differently. Do the chorus a little differently, right? And with metal music, it's energy. I want them to not even be able to control the way that their body is moving right now. I want them to be so wrapped into this thing that they just have to freaking go, right? And headbang. And so I think that it's important to listen to other genres of music that you're not necessarily like into at the time, because maybe it'll teach you something that their listeners like, and you can apply it to what you're doing. And actually it allows you to want to listen to those things. So I went from listening to applying it when I started learning how to use Logic Pro X more, and actually when the pandemic hit. Because I was in the basement recording like every night, and I was like, ooh, like I can use this. Oh, wow, that cross stick sounds good. I'll use that cross stick in this. Ooh, but it feels like a Latin cross stick. Okay, let's go to that Latin song I like and listen to that, and then see what pattern they're doing and start a song based off that pattern, right? And then it just takes off from there. And so the more that I was experimenting with this stuff, I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of songs on my computer that are never going to see the light of day because they were experiments for what this became, right? And I'm sure that, you know, you can relate to that because, I mean, you have a very defined and solid sound as well. And I know that you have stuff on your computer that would blow people's minds.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Or things that you would want to hide.
Right. Yeah. There's a ton of that. Like, that's never coming out. Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's how I felt. And growing up with already something unique in my ear, like Hindustani classical music, kind of helped me understand that groove is beyond 4 on the floor. Sometimes, you know, sometimes groove is 4 on the floor and it's amazing, but sometimes groove is something that, you know, many people have to study, and luckily I grew up listening to, you know, so that kind of helped me be open to a lot of new ideas.
For sure.
Let's talk about, you know, but your voice, like listening to you, your speaking voice and then your singing voice as an instrument, you have such control. And the levels, I mean, you have such range as well. Like, that is just amazing. It's beautiful. And so can you talk to us about, like, that process? What was your training like? What are your go-to, like, as far as your practice?
Yeah, so when I was listening to soul, well, I used to have terrible technique. I used to have really, really bad technique. I was in my throat a lot. You know, when you sing Let's Stay Together, you can't go, let's stay together. You go, let's stay together. It's in your throat. And some people can be in their throat all day long, like Al Green, you know, and just crush it. You know, so I grew up singing that stuff. But then in freshman year of college, I was in an a cappella group. And I was in the choir, and I was trying to record my own music. And all that singing actually had a really, really hard time on my throat. So I developed vocal nodules, which I don't know if you know what that is, but in Pitch Perfect, they call them nodes. I have nodes. And then they freak out. I had nodes. And after singing in that same Pitch Perfect-esque competition, but with my group, right? So that I literally developed nodes right after that competition. Oh, wow. And I cried so much when I got nodes because my emotional release many times is music. And I was told, don't sing. You know, I was told you need to save your voice. And I went to this speech pathologist, and I only saw her twice. She gave me a set of vocal exercises that literally changed my life. And I had a recording of our session, and I don't know where it is anymore. I've searched so much, and I can't find it. It's driving me crazy. But that 1 hour, the first and second sessions, they were both 1 hour. And 1 hour, one is not plural. They were both 1 hour. And I just remember it completely changing the way that I thought about my vocal progress. And they gave me, she gave me just like 4 or 5 exercises to do every day, twice a day. And I did that every day, twice a day for 3 months. And immediately my body, when you have good vocal technique, your body relaxes. Your entire body is like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could be this relaxed. Because vocal breathing and vocal technique is very similar to meditative breathing, right? They say, breathe from your diaphragm, right? Everything should feel up here. It was all these concepts that people were explaining in very different ways, but they were very similar concepts. So one time I heard, resonance is like a bee floating around in front of your face. And then somebody else said, resonance is like a cone on your head that, comes to one focal point. You have to sing out of that focal point. I think about resonance and going up and down in your resonance as like an elevator that's right from your nose. Your nose is the elevator, and it goes up and down. And so when you sing, how you sing down here should be in the same place on the, as when you sing up here. So people have different ways of explaining it. And I started, through all these analogies, I started understanding what they meant. And also through singing things like musical theater, theater is all about resonance, vibrato, and so those songs are very challenging to sing, and they became these challenges. Learning my vocal technique and wanting to sing those songs kind of became like a progression where I don't think I'll ever end, because there will always be the next song that I want to be able to sing that I can't yet, right? And then I get to that point. And so I hope that I never stop trying to get better and better at that, because the more I do that, the more my body gets relaxed. And then I started doing things like stretching before I sleep, and like that helped my body being more relaxed, helped more with my vocal technique, and vice versa. And it's a feedback loop. So yeah,
that's awesome. No, but thank you for sharing that. That was,
for sure.
I think folks need to know, because I think you don't hear that many. I mean, vocalists, yes, will say it, but when people think of music, they think of instrumentation, which is great. But, using your voice as an instrument as well, the highs, the lows, the technique, like you had mentioned before, the chords, making sure that you protect it, just like you would protect your drumstick or your, your violin strings.
Yeah. Yeah. And the upkeep and all of these different things, like for anything, because, like whether we're talking about an instrument for a musician, or like someone who's a business owner who has different assets, like a camera or a computer, like all that stuff has to be maintained in order for you to do your job well. So, that was great info. But real quick,
sounds like a water break.
Yeah. Oh man, and it's funny that you mentioned water break, because it is break time. We're gonna take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, Words, Beats, and Life. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break. And shout out to Words, Beats, and Life. Right now, their Summer Academy has just started. So those of you who are age 22 and younger, who are looking for, and when I say younger, I'm talking about elementary school age all the way through college. If you're looking for an academy that offers free classes in the various art forms, from graffiti art and mural art to floral art to, you name it, creative writing. They also offer entrepreneur classes. They also offer video editing and a long list of other things. But anyway, Words, Beats, and Life is an organization that offers these classes for free to people who live in the DMV, to young people specifically. So shout out to them for being an official sponsor of our podcast. And we're going to let them take it away from here. And after that, we'll be back with more milling. All right.
My name is Assad Walker, and I teach graffiti at Where Beats and Lane. When I started doing graffiti in high school, it really helped me in an environment that I just really didn't feel like I fit in. I had just moved to a new high school. I started creating art out in the streets, and it just really helped me express myself. I really feel like graffiti is a great way for kids to express themselves, which is something that all teenagers kind of are really trying to figure out how to do. I think it's really the root of why my classes are popular with kids, but I really think it can transition into a meaningful career or occupation as they get older. And that's why I'm with WBL. Enroll in my graffiti class at wblinc.org/academy.
All right, and we're back.
We're back. So you had mentioned earlier in the show, in college you were part of a cappella group. In high school you were in chorus. But you also participated in the local DC chapter of the Grammys called Grammy U. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that? About your experience with them?
Yeah, Grammy U was great. They had so many resources in learning about the music industry. I did Grammy U for a little while, and I was able to, go out and meet some people. Like I met Mario during his sound check.
Nice.
He was performing at this venue nearby my school, and me and a couple of friends in the Grammy U program went over and got to meet him and talked with his manager about, the music industry and things like that. It was really a moment where I was like, you know what? I know I want to do music after college. I know that I want to keep up with this. I'm way too excited about it. And it just is such a huge part of my life. So I decided to join that because I had a couple of friends that were joining, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Mm-hmm. And then also I started later in my college years, I started interning at a studio in Baltimore called Song Builder Studios. And my studio manager was a Recording Academy member. So he had an extra tickets to some events. So I went with him to, I think it was an anniversary. I don't remember the number, but it was an anniversary for the Grammy U DC, or the Grammy DC chapter, Recording Academy chapter. And I remember going there, and actually through going there, I met a whole bunch of people, and one person that I met asked my studio manager if he could play guitar at their church. If he could play guitar at their church that next Sunday. And my studio manager was like, oh, I'm busy, actually, I can't play. And then I was like, I play guitar. And the studio manager was like, yep, talk to him. And then he walked away. And me and that guy talked for a while, and then I ended up going and playing at the church. And then I ended up getting a sound gig at the church, so I was doing live sound for their live stream. And then I started meeting all these amazing gospel musicians and started getting into the gospel scene and singing in these gospel groups. And I did like sound at other churches, started learning about video work, doing video work at other churches. So that was just like a really, really cool side quest, I guess, in my musical path that taught me a lot about what people that are doing music full time or people that are in the industry, what they do outside of just seeing them perform, right? Talking to these people that are like, yep, and now I got to fly to here and do this show, and then I fly over there and do this interview and then fly here. And I was like, oh, wow, like it just got me more and more excited to do music. And it allowed me to shoot higher in my dreams for music, and taught me a lot about my voice, what goes into putting out an album, what goes into putting in a live show. And not only does it, when I was in college, I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but when I was,
That's okay.
You're
in college, my mentality going into college was I want to be able to do everything. If somebody wants me to fly mics on a catwalk for a symphony at their venue, I want to be able to do that. If somebody wants me to arrange for their big band, right, I want to be able to do that. If somebody wants me to play, you know, bass at you know, this gig, I want to be able to do that.
Wow.
Right.
And so if somebody wants me to ghostwrite for a rapper, I want to be able to do that, right? So I started learning about all of these things, and I told myself I'm going to learn how to do everything. So when I leave college, I can choose what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left college, it was like this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity. My studio manager wanted me to get more involved in producing for other artists. You know, I had offers to do a lot more video work, a lot more mixing and mastering, all that stuff. So I kind of got to try a bunch of different things and go, okay, I want to settle here. And that place I wanted to settle was I want to produce my music, and I want to write songs for myself, and I want to help other people write their songs and help other people with their production. So it's been nice also taking on some mentors in that way, and or mentees, I guess, in that way, and helping people with their creative process too.
Yeah, and you've done that beautifully. You know, shameless plug. The song that you wrote with Stan for "You've Grown" is fantastic.
Thank you.
So it was,
Well,
it
when
was beautiful.
someone gives me something fantastic,
Oh man.
I got to try and do what I can to live up to it. So I'm glad that it turned
And
out.
you did.
I appreciate it. Don't worry. The Cash App is coming through in a couple minutes. Don't worry. No, man. But earlier, I know you talked about the DAW that you use these days. You were mentioning Logic Pro X. So has it always been Logic, or have you played around with a few different ones? And for those listening, who I know some of our listeners are musicians, and others are visual artists, and others are just, you know, or just love the arts. So for those who don't know, a DAW is just a digital audio workstation. But even though Logic's what you use now, has it always been Logic? What other ones have you played around with?
Yeah. So at a young age, my dad said, we're going to get you a Mac, because it seems like Macs are pretty good for music and you know, file sharing and things like that. So that was a smart move, because GarageBand comes on a Mac. And so I started with GarageBand at first, right? And I was diving really deep into it. And Logic, as people that have used GarageBand or Logic or something like that, people you typically know GarageBand and Logic is like GarageBand on steroids. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting more serious, and I'm starting to feel limited by what I can do in GarageBand. I'm going to get Logic. Then when I went to college, I studied music technology, and they taught me how to mix and master everything in Pro Tools. So what I used to do was I used to produce my songs at home in Logic, and then bounce out all the files, and upload them into Pro Tools, and then mix in the studios at school in Pro Tools. And then that would be my final product. Then I started learning, ooh, look at us.
and we were twinning too, but
Oh, we were twinning. That was not planned.
right.
But
carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started mixing and mastering in Pro Tools, but after that I started learning a little bit more. Once I took the concepts in Pro Tools, I started learning how to mix in Logic. So that was also pretty helpful. But yeah, I've pretty much been a GarageBand to Logic, and then Logic and Pro Tools boy. Now I'm pretty much Logic the whole time. And I've done some experimenting in Ableton, and I've worked with people that use FL Studio too. So those two I'm somewhat familiar with, but don't ask me any questions.
All right. Got it.
You know, being a multi-talented, a multi-instrumentalist, a multifaceted artist in general, besides your vocals, right? What instrument brings you the most joy?
You know, that changes from periods of time in my life. So when I was younger, it was piano, because the piano is like the map of theory for me. And I was like, I'm going to learn everything. Like, I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can. So it was like, what if I had this note? What if I had this note? And kept getting excited, right? So that brought me the most joy back then. Then it turned into guitar, because with guitar, there's so much feeling you can get from bending a string that is more difficult to get from a piano. My friend and I were talking the other day, actually my keyboardist, Ricky, who's picking up guitar and starting to get more into guitar. He and I were talking about how the limitations on the guitar actually like present opportunities for different sorts of expression. So the fact that, you know, you might not be able to do something on guitar that you can do on piano actually allows you to express something on guitar that you can't necessarily express on piano because it doesn't have that limitation.
Right.
Bending the string is one example of that. And so we started talking about that, so then I started, you know, getting really into guitar. But right now it would have to be the bass, because I'm learning that same amount of expression I get on guitar and excitement I get from guitar, I get on bass. But bass is most of the time one note at a time, and it thinks melodically. And with my songwriting and my singing, like, I think melodically, because I can't, well, I could get nerdy and say you could sing to more than one note at one time with overtones, but you can't really sing more than one note at a time with the voice. And when I'm playing bass, it's like I'm singing again. For the first time, I'm learning how to sing again. And so you'll hear, if you zone into the bass on this album, I'm just having the time of my life. I'm just trying, I'm just trying as much as possible. The first song is very heavily, like, it's heavy on the bass. And it's, you know, pretty like neo soul. It's got that D'Angelo kind of influence to it. And you know, Pino Palladino on the bass on those D'Angelo records is like, it's like next level. So it's just, you know, playing that gives me the most excitement right now.
Dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Random question, which isn't so random because we kind of mentioned, we were talking about one of your records earlier. I think we were talking about the record See the Light from your album In a Day, which drops this Friday, y'all. Friday, In a Day, all streaming platforms. But yeah, have you ever considered performing on Broadway?
I've definitely, so I've done two, maybe three. I don't remember if it was three or not. At least two musical theater productions back in high school. And one time I actually had to tap dance and sing at the same time, which was so much fun for me, because it was like, oh, I get to exercise both parts of my brain, you know, and like one is at my feet. And I've, you know, growing up watching my sister dance, she learned how to tap dance in school too. So I was like, how do I do this? And she would help me at home, and, you know, but I'm not a very good actor. I don't think I'm a very good actor. I feel like most of the time I'm a pretty open book when I talk to people, and I'm pretty transparent. So like delivering a line that I, you know, or getting into the emotion of feeling a line that, like, you know, after being backstage, like goofing around with my friends, was always a difficult thing for me. But it's been more recent that I've been getting into the Broadway singing, like singing songs that are, and actually watching Broadway shows. I saw Waitress. That was the first Broadway show I saw in New York, and I was like, my mind was blown. And so, yeah, I think singing those songs and stuff, it's gotten me more like interested in the idea of it. But yeah, that's something that I haven't thought too much about. I've been kind of on this like freight train of a path right now.
Sure.
And like, you know, we've you know, a few times, you know, we've looped around and gone past Broadway, but no, I haven't really taken that too seriously yet.
Right.
It's coming. I can see it. I can see it.
No, for sure. Listen, fun fact about me. Musicals are like I love film in general, but musicals for a lot of times, for a lot of people, it's corny, turns them off or whatever. I love musicals. I just like a writing challenge. So that's how I see musicals. Like whenever I watch one, whether it's Sound of Music, or something like, that's a bit darker, like Dancer in the Dark with Bjork. I just love like the challenge of how do we plop this in the middle of a story and use it as a device to help push the story forward in a way that doesn't take away from the story, right? And so when I see musicians, dancers, and all of that do that successfully, like I'm amazed at like how, like, and I'm still, and I feel like when it's done really, really well, it doesn't take you out of the story, right? It just feels like, yeah, I could see that, like walking through the Spanish Harlem one day and we just broke into song and dance. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty much what rappers do on any corner, any given night, you know what I mean? Minus the dancing, right?
Oh man, that's killer.
Right. Right,
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. Musical theater has this amazing way of using music, where it's typically about a very specific situation that's happening, and they have to get the most emotion out of that situation. Whereas a lot of music not associated with musical theater, I think nowadays, is like, I want to try to make something that's for everyone to relate to, which is awesome, right? But I think with that comes a little bit of vagueness in the lyricism, or vagueness in the chord progressions, or and the musical The Last 5 Years is one of the most powerful musicals that I think I've ever seen. And they use music so much dissonance and so many different moments and so many motifs that are played in different ways that create different like the polar opposite of emotion that was used prior in the musical when that motif was used earlier. And I think that like those kinds of the limitation of a specific emotional moment, right, actually creates so many opportunities for storytelling and for using motifs in different ways. So that's something that I also try to use at the end of the first song, and I use that actually in the album. At the end of the first song on the album, the melody goes, "Come and rescue me," and then immediately after that, the next song's upbeat, and that first song is a little like more solemn. It's about wanting to feel like intoxicated by love. And then the next song is about meeting my fiance for the first time. So it's like high energy. So I go, "Come and rescue me." And then the next song goes, and it goes straight into, and like, you love, like, it's like, I'm using that motif earlier to actually be like, oh, that feeling, now it's like energized. Now we have more energy to it. And I think that's important.
That's awesome.
To be conscious of. I think it's also important to be conscious of, like being relatable. Everybody can see their own experience in what you're saying too. So there's some of that on the album too.
Yeah. Talking about the album, you have worked, in groups. You have collaborated with several artists. You've collaborated with artists in this new project that you have. What would you say are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being a solo artist?
Advantages of being a solo artist, I think, are you're in control of your own schedule. You're in control of your own pace. You're in control of what you want to do. And that feels so good, especially if you feel like you're never satisfied. Because if you are in control of your own pace and schedule, and you're never satisfied, the sky is the limit. You are constantly motivated to move and move and move. And if you have a bad week, you're not really like reliant on other people, you can take the time for self-care and really focus on yourself. And what that does is open up opportunities for your creativity to thrive in other instances. So like later down the line, I literally wrote a song once that will never see the light of day, but I wrote a song about being burned out. And I wrote it a week after I was burned out for like a month, right? And I remember being like, man, that's an interesting way to get, like applying music to get closure on being burnt out from music is an interesting way to start back up, rev the engine a little bit more, right? So I remember that being a really healthy way for me to get back into music. And being a solo artist, I can do that. But, you know, when you're working with, if you're in a band or, you know, another group with a bunch of different people and kind of reliant on their schedule, you can't really afford to have an off day. And if you do, it kind of impacts everyone.
Yeah.
Now, the disadvantage to being a solo artist is that everything's on you, right? So every single part of being a solo artist is kind of on you. And you have to you're liable for setting a schedule for yourself. I think that I watched this documentary the other day about like the art of flow. And this is one thing that I think I didn't experience until I got my band together and we started doing shows. I didn't experience it as much, but they say that flow, you are the most productive as a human being in flow. You learn the most, and flow is a state where the task that you're trying to achieve is approximately 4% more complicated than your capabilities, right? And when that is true amongst a group of people, that is the highest form of flow that you can achieve. So people that are in groups, in bands, and every record that they do is not them just producing it on a computer, it's them playing it in the room. They get to access that art of group flow much quicker, and that gives them a higher reward at the end of the day. And I'm starting to experience that now that like I have the band and the way that we play is so improvised. None of us do the same thing over again. And I think that now I'm starting to get more and more of a sense every single time we perform of what that feels like. But I think that being a solo artist it can prohibit you from time to time from accessing that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So before we let you go, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna jump into we're gonna close out with rapid fire questions, but I want to make sure we give folks a chance to talk about this album a little bit more. We see you got the cover art behind you right now. So for those who don't know, even though we've mentioned it a few times, we're going to mention it again. Millen is working on his, has his album dropping this Friday. And he also has a big show happening this Friday at it's Pearl Street Warehouse, correct?
Pearl Street Warehouse, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And so let's talk about the album briefly. Like, you know, what should people expect from this record? We know it's going to be on all platforms, including Bandcamp. It'll also be on Bandcamp because I know some of the people in the chat are familiar. But tell us briefly about the record before we go.
Absolutely, this record is about me. It's about me being rescued from loneliness by my fiance, and all the lessons that we've learned, the moments that we've shared up until us getting married in July, poured into this album. What you can expect from it is definitely a variety of emotions that one may feel when in a relationship, or one may want from a relationship. and ideally people can get wholesome morals in this record, because I think that me and my fiance share a very wholesome relationship, and we complement each other very well. And we've been through a lot, and we've triumphed, and feel like we're in a place of just pure joy. And so the cover art right there is the day that I proposed to her. She said, we should put a rose in your suit pocket and then put the ring in the rose and get a picture of that. And so it was her idea to do that. And that's now the cover art for the album. And you can expect genres from neo soul, R&B, soul music, some pop music, some theater, but all kind of tied together. And then hints of like Latin and bossa as well, all tied together with with charismatic vocals and thick vocal jazz harmony.
No, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man. Congrats. Yeah. It's again, man, it's an amazing record. We've had the pleasure of listening to it several times because we know you, and we had the inside scoop, and you know what I mean? We
got the hookup.
Yeah, we had the hookup, so we appreciate it. Thank you. I wanted to point out too, for anybody who's watching right now, who ventured over from my YouTube channel, if you remember Millen making an appearance on Substantial Live from Home, Millen actually gave an amazing performance that night and performed several of the songs that's from, I feel like at least 2 or 3 of the songs you performed that night were from this from this record that's dropping Friday.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
So you'll hear
man. Yeah, for sure. So anyone want to venture back to that and remember, oh yeah, he did kill it. I should get this album. Yes. But yeah, man. So before you go, it is time for the rapid fire questions. And this is always fun for us because we spend a lot of time prepping for these interviews. I hope you feel the prep. You see, we kind of dove into your personal life a bit, grabbed some photos that probably wasn't expecting to see. I figure I put a not so embarrassing one up for you right there. But yeah, man. But we have a lot of fun, debating on what to ask, what not to ask, et cetera, et cetera. So let's jump into it. You want to set it off?
Yes. So it's 5 questions, and you'd get to pick one of the 2 options. Okay. So. Diving into a little bit of culture, right? Stan and I are foodies. We love food, and I think everybody else loves food. So, So 2 options: gulab jamun or kheer.
Gulab jamun, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And for those that don't know, it's a Indian dish. It's a dessert, similar to I guess what you say, like a donut, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's it's like a munchkin and with syrupy kind of texture.
Very sweet. We've had it. We love Indian food. So
there was a period of time when I didn't like it because I ate it too much. We're back.
We're back. And the other one, kheer, is more like a porridge. I guess for the American version would be more like a porridge.
Very thick in its flavor.
Yes, very.
Yeah.
Yeah, so being that you are a Maryland guy like me, so it's only right. I gotta ask, crabs, right? And we'll throw in crab cake if you're more of a crab cake guy than crabs.
Okay.
Or chicken wings and mambo sauce.
Ooh, chicken wings and mambo sauce.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. Right?
It's okay. It is.
I don't even eat chicken anymore, and that would have been my answer. So, hey,
crab feast, they were like, "Here's a bib, here's a hammer. You gotta," and I'm like, "This is a lot just to eat some food."
Bruh.
You hit the thing and then peel it, and then it's like I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna stick with the easy barrier to entry food."
Yes.
And for those that are not from the area, right? Because it's funny, when I think of chicken wings and mumbo, I think of very much DC, PG County. But because where you are in Maryland, it could be Are we talking about Baltimore? Are we talking about Baltimore crab? You know, Baltimore with crab cake, or what's the fish we were talking about earlier?
Oh, flounder.
Or flounder.
Oh no,
No,
trout. Yeah,
Right.
trout.
So I was like, do they eat, chicken wings and gumbo up north in like northern Maryland, north Midwest Maryland?
But I told her, I was like, this guy spends a lot of time all around the DMV. I'm like, he's gonna know chicken wings and mumbo sauce. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I honestly didn't eat much seafood when I was younger too, so I think that probably contributed.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
My fiance's gonna be mad at that answer, but
she'll be okay. She'll be all
right on the bay. He's like, how dare you?
Right. All right.
So next one is, okay, this is going to be a hard one. Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder or Brown Sugar by D'Angelo.
Oh, no.
I told you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. Okay, you know what? Brown Sugar. Okay, so no, I'm going to go with Songs in the Key of Life, which, by the way, is on this amazing thing that my fiance painted for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a great record. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, she painted all of these. And as you see, I have Voodoo on here.
Nice.
Right? So
Voodoo is fire.
Voodoo's crazy. And so is Mount Messiah. And so is Brown Sugar, obviously. But
right.
I think that Songs in the Key of Life is my favorite Stevie album. Mm-hmm. And Brown Sugar I wouldn't say that that's my favorite D'Angelo album.
Okay. Got it.
But it's a great album.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
So I would have to go with that. That's so hard. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to both and be like flip flop my answers every time.
Yeah, not mad at it. All right, so we were talking about we mentioned Pitch Perfect earlier. So your next rapid fire one is Sister Act 1 or 2, or Pitch Perfect 1 or 2.
I don't remember much of Sister Act. I watched it at a pretty young age, so I don't remember too much of it.
Yeah.
So I would have to say, like,
Pitch
Perfect 1.
Okay. Got it.
2 is just, they did the same thing.
Yeah. For
They
sure.
did.
For sure.
And you want to go ahead with
last one. So this should be fun. So what is like, so when Millen's out on the town, right? And you're just living your best life.
Oh yeah.
And then, it wasn't on the schedule, but you happen to see a spot and they're doing karaoke, right?
Oh, jeez.
You stumble in there. What is the go-to karaoke song for Millen? And here's the catch. You have to answer by singing us a few bars.
Oh, okay. I have a love-hate relationship with karaoke.
I feel you.
When I do karaoke, I really, really like, I don't want to do music if I'm not like trying to sound good at music.
Right.
And like so many times I feel like a jerk if I'm like, all right, now listen to this. Like, so I always am like a little like tentative. My go-to karaoke song now, it used to be "Feeling Good" by Michael Bublé.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like the development of that song.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I'm at karaoke, I usually do a song with Katie. It's usually "Best Part" by Dana Snyder and her.
You're cheating right now.
I'm sorry.
Remember, you remember that you have to answer in
song.
Yeah.
In song.
All right. It's gonna be "Feeling Good" by Bublé. But
okay.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Free breeze drifting on by, that's how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good.
Yay!
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Millen. Yeah, man.
That was nice.
That was amazing, brother. Thank you, man. Yeah, man, this has been fun, man. I hope you had a good time with us, man. We definitely had a good time with you.
Thank you so much. It's amazing what you guys do. Big fan of what you guys are doing.
Oh,
thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now I know how you got your girl for real,
Right.
for real. You singing to her like that. Woo.
And yeah, man, and you're getting a lot of love. And shout out to all the people watching live right now on YouTube or Facebook. They definitely are feeling it, you know. But yeah, man. Yeah, man. But yeah, man, thank you so much, man, for making time for us. Super excited for this record to be out in the world.
Yeah,
And
best of luck on the launch.
absolutely.
so
Yeah, man. And you know we're rooting for you, man. We're MLLN fans, you know. Every time we play your stuff, my oldest daughter is walking by, is like, is that MLLN? He's like, yeah, that's MLLN. So it's a new one.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah, no, yeah, it will do, man. But thank you so much for being on the show. You know, and thank you again to everybody who's watching. Before we close out, we're gonna jump into like a couple quick reminders and stuff. And and last reminder, if you are in the DMV area, you can see MLLN this Friday at the Pearl Street Warehouse performing live with his band. And you can also stream his album on all streaming platforms, as well as Bandcamp this Friday, in a day, everywhere. So once again, give it up for MLLN.
Thank you.
Yeah, brother, and we will see you in a bit. All right. All right. So to everyone else, before we go, just want to, let you know of a couple things. Just give you heads up on something real quick. So just a quick reminder. Let's move some stuff off the screen so you can see it. We will be back at BlurredCon. We are super excited to be back at BlurredCon. We will be there from July 7th through the 8th. I mean, through the 9th, pardon me, all weekend long. But on July 8th, we will be bringing Sketchpads back to BlurredCon, where we debuted it there. Yeah. So definitely look out for that. Our featured artist is our good friend Micah Blacklight. Micah Blacklight. Micah Blacklight. There we go. I'm tired. And our featured musician / producer is K Murdoch. Talented producers.
And both have been on the show.
Yes, both have been. That's right. Both are former guests of the show. So look out for that. It's going to be a great time. First come, first serve basis for our gift bags that have drawing supplies in them. So definitely make sure you are on time. Last time we did this at BlurredCon, we literally had a line down the hall. And I think it was like over 2 times the amount of people who could fit in the room. So folks were waiting for people to leave to come in. So definitely we're looking forward to that, and it's going to be a great time. So,
and we also have a special treat for those that are participating. You get to draw not 1 but 2 cosplayers, and they're a good time. They're fun. It'll be a great time. Again, like we said, we'll have goodie bags for you all, so get there early for those that are planning to come.
Absolutely. And couple plug one more time. We're gonna plug MLLN's album. Before we go, we're gonna put that cover up on the screen just so you know what it looks like, because I forgot to do it while I was running my mouth. But yeah, once again, MLLN's album In a Day, which is amazing, drops this Friday on all platforms. Be sure to check that out. And in case you haven't been paying attention, my album also is dropping about a month from now. We're almost a month away. And it also features the homie MLLN, along with many other people like Shingo 2, Uyama Hiroto, Javier Starks, Tamara Wellens, Stephanie Gale killed it, Malcolm Jackson, so many folks. Shout out to Jonathan Smalls on bass on multiple tracks, and DJ Hive, DJ RBI. Just, man, my friends are dope, you know, and I'm blessed to have so many amazing people contribute to the record and be surrounded by so many talented people. Shout out to Tone Deaf for mixing and mastering it. So be sure to pre-order the album along with the limited edition merch that we have. Like outside of the vinyl record and CDs, we also have custom Vans skate highs.
And they're hot.
And they are fire. Yeah. So you can make sure you secure those along with your tees and USBs and all that good stuff.
And tees.
I said it, you know, not drinking tea though. We're talking about t-shirts, you know what I'm saying, to be clear, because that's what J Soul did. You know that, right? J Soul literally had tea for along with his merch for the album. I was like, what we fancy? Okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm not quite there, but you know, I'm working on it. But on that note, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna send y'all out with our good old outro music. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. If it's your first time watching our channel, watching our content, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, share it, please, and thank you. We appreciate it. And shout out, super duper shout out to Words, Beats, and Life. Clap it up for them for supporting what we do and believing in our show. And yeah, man, we greatly appreciate it. Be sure to support them in any way you can. If you got youngins in your family that are looking for something to do this summer or looking for something to do throughout the school year after school, Words, Beats, and Life is a great organization that's doing great work in our community.
Yes,
and it costs you nothing but time. You know, so shout out to them again for believing in us. All right. And on that note, we're out of here, man. Y'all take care. Peace.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Artistry, where art meets industry. Season 4 of Artistry is powered by Words, Beats, and Life. Visit www.wblinc.org to learn more. This podcast is produced by Substantial Art and Music. For more information, please visit www.subartandmusic.com. You can also follow us on social media at subartandmusic. Peace.